So hello to everybody, it's good to see you. I'd like to call the meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council to order. I would ask you to remember to please silence all your electronic devices. And if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we thank you for your continued blessings on our great city and ask your guidance at our meeting tonight. Help us to be mindful of the tremendous responsibility entrusted to us as elected representatives of our friends and neighbors. Grant us wisdom to balance the interests of our diverse community and to model a spirit of mutual respect that serves as an example to others. Help us always remember that we are better, stronger, and smarter together. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Our first item of business is a certificate of recognition for Chuck's Organic Food Store. Mr. Holmes, would you like to approach the podium, please? Sure. You can bring your family with you if you like. They don't have to be bashful. It's just on television. There are millions of people watching.
Yeah.
Good evening. It's good to have you here. Thanks for coming. We're very proud to be able to recognize you tonight. And so since our Vice Mayor Schistler was very instrumental in making this possible, I'd like to ask you if you'd like to read the certificate of recognition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. Just so people understand, we at Temple Terrace try to be very business friendly, and we felt that as we approach our centennial, we want to recognize some of the businesses, our people, our local Temple Terrace residents who have been here for a long time. We're not talking the big stores, the chains, but the ones who get out every day and fight the good fight. So, certificate of recognition presented to Chuck's Organic Food Store in recognition of 30 years of business. Chuck's Organic Food Store was founded at Temple Terrace in 1992. Owner Chuck Homuth, a licensed nutritional counselor, gives personalized attention and care to all his customers. He strives to provide high-quality organic food and knowledgeable customer service. Chuck's Organic Food Store serves a variety of prepared meals, juices, soups, smoothies, vitamins, and herbal products. Chuck makes it his mission to create a community that thrives on an abundance of health. Chuck has also been a major supporter of Temple Terrace youth sports team for many years. It is our honor to recognize Chuck's Organic Food Store for 30 years of business in Temple Terrace. Awarded this 16th day of August 2022, Mayor Andrew Ross and the City Council members Meredith Abel, James Chambers, Sherry Donahue, and Gil Schusler. Thank you very much for your service to our community, and would you like to say anything?
Yeah, if I have a minute or two.
Sure.
That's great. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for this recognition. And thank you to Greg Pauley also for giving support to local small business as the Business Relations Manager for the city. As we all know, the environment for small businesses these past few years has become much more challenging. So it's important that we all patronize these great businesses in Temple Terrace. My suggestions are to, 1, click less on the computer to order things. 2, when dining out, choose small local restaurants. It always pains me to see these large corporate chains parking lots, maybe like next door, for example, jam-packed while there's so many other small family-owned restaurants here in the Terrace to enjoy and support. And isn't it great that at least we do not have a Walmart in Temple Terrace, as so many other small towns across America do? Secondly, I've been in the health food business since the late 1980s. Back then, it was hard to find any information on nutrition, as there were only a handful of books that were available on the topic. We're living in the information age. These days, we can search anything on our phones anytime. I recommend that everyone empower and educate yourself about what it takes to have exceptionally good health. Be proactive, make it a priority in your life, and it will pay off tremendously. You'll feel great, age gracefully, and be able to accomplish anything you set out to do. And you'll most likely avoid a lot of pain and suffering also down the road. We all know the quote by Ben Franklin, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." Lastly, if you need any assistance or guidance on the subject of health and well-being, you can look to Chuck's and our over 30 years experience of helping people live better lives. And I wanted to correct that. The store name actually is Chuck's Natural Fields Market. So thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Mr. Scaglione,
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
why don't you step up to the microphone so everybody on television can hear?
One of Chuck's employees wrote this, and I thought it was so appropriate that she felt so strongly about where she worked that she wrote this particular note. She was not able to attend, but Chuck's asked me to read it. Simply says, "It all started back in 1992 before any other proprietor had a clue. To open a store promoting health and wellness, advising and guiding the public to guard against illness. To all his customers, he is very caring, always concerned about how their health is faring. Chuck is highly selective of what products he carries in his store. Only the highest quality will do, he believes to his core. Chuck is full of integrity and someone we can all trust. Therefore, shopping here at Chuck's is definitely a must." So there you go. Thank you so very much, all of you.
Get his name. Did we get his name? The
Yeah.
speaker?
Yeah, Jack
Okay.
Scaglione.
No, oh, okay.
Oh, we're gonna get a picture. Yeah, you're not getting off that easy. Our next item of business is we have two presentations. The first one is kind of at the request of Councilmember Donahue, so I will allow her to introduce our guest.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce, did you say there were 1 million people watching this? I didn't
well,
know that.
that was earlier. They tuned
Yes,
in later. Now
maybe
there's
more now.
Yeah.
We have a new principal at Lewis Elementary. She's Melissa Babanats, and she's not a new principal. She will tell us how many years she's been in service, but we are delighted to have you in our city, and she has a special announcement for us. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I am very excited to be the new principal at Lewis Elementary. I am a 23-year veteran of our district. I have actually been a principal now for, this is my 8th year as a principal, but I've been in administration for the last 16. I've been the principal at Town and Country Elementary. I was also the principal at Folsom Elementary, just right down the street. And now I'm at Lewis, where I could not be any happier. It's a wonderful community, just a great group of people to work with, I should say, not for. But it's just been a blast to be there so far. So we do have very exciting news. We have been chosen by our district to represent the district in Space Day / Space Weekend. So basically what that is, and this is a kind of a save the date, I guess, and I know it's kind of quick, but our teachers are working very rapidly to get this together, and the district as well. So it's August the 26th. It will be in the morning, probably around 9 a.m. You are all cordially invited to attend. It's next Friday. So here's the thing. So anybody ever heard of Blue Origin? Anybody? Yep. that's part of the sponsorship. So Blue Origin will be bringing their team, I believe it's called Club for the Future. We will also have an astronaut, Sharon Hagel, join us. Also, Dr. Andrew Aldrin, who, yes, is Buzz Aldrin's son. So it's going to be very exciting. I really would like to thank 3 of our teachers who have been working behind the scenes and didn't even know this was coming. They have been actually writing for the Department of Defense for the last, at least for the last year, if not more, helping write cross-curricular lessons. And I think they spent some time at NASA over the summer. So it's really cool. Very excited to have this opportunity. It's a big deal. We're going to have press there. This will be live streamed not only through our district, so we kind of will represent, my understanding is we'll represent the district. So our school is the spotlight, and the rest of the district will be watching as we're going through the motions. Every school will be invited to, the whole point behind it was they want to send 1 million postcards to space. And upon the return from space, each child will receive their postcard back, postmarked, from space. Therefore, they will have an artifact from space. So kind of a cool concept, really getting our kids looking more at STEM and space and aeronautics. So very exciting opportunity. Our kids will also, they're also live streaming it via Blue Origin. But the whole district, again, will be watching along with us. We'll have about a 45-minute presentation with most of our students involved, or about half of our students. And we'll also have some activities right afterwards, that they'll have a moon map activity, which I would love to tell you more about it, but until I see it, I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds pretty cool. We're also going to have a couple of our students highlighted because of their coding abilities within our schools. So again, I've had a core group of teachers that have just gone above and beyond. And when I tell you, I mean, we found out maybe 2 weeks ago, and they just jumped right in and we're like, what can we do to make this a success? So hopefully one of many things to come. We are looking at a lot of STEM stuff. As you know, the way we're moving in our society, STEM is essential. So, and I will tell you that thanks to the Temple Terrace grants, that we have been able to get some STEM materials within our school now. So we have these really cool boxes we did with the teachers actually to kind of get them motivated. They're called break-in boxes. So think of like an escape room, but you're breaking into the box instead of breaking out of it. So, and it's all educational material. So it's a really cool concept, and to see it in action is really neat. So we will also have a brief career and technical education meeting following to see how it is that these different programs can really help our students succeed. I'm trying to think of anything else. Do you have any questions for me?
What time? Friday?
So right now, it's tentatively 9 a.m. We are waiting. The district is going to give us a press release, and as soon as I receive that, I will forward that to you all as well. We also would like to invite the Temple Terrace School Support Committee, because they're all, obviously very integral in making sure that our grants are awarded. So, but we look forward to having you there if you can come. It's going to be a great morning. All of our staff will have on their space shirts that day, lots of space decorations on the school, but more importantly, the importance of STEM in our schools and the importance of space travel and all kind of good stuff.
If you can, once that gets locked down, if you can get that to our city clerk,
Absolutely.
and we will make sure that it gets to all the school support committee members and to the
That
council
would
members.
be fabulous. I will do that, yes.
Great, that would
But
be
we hopefully, I anticipated having that today, but it's not ready yet. So as
I
soon as I get that,
understand.
I will have it to you, yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate your time, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited for lots of wonderful things to happen here at Lewis.
Well, we're excited to have you, so welcome.
Thank
Let us
you.
know if we can help you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, yes.
I have to request a do-over. Can we take that picture again?
With Chuck?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Oh, my
you're
goodness.
okay.
Thank you.
I
Thank
thought she
you.
meant you.
Cheryl, you can stop the timer. Yes. So it's like the old days, you didn't have film in the camera?
There is film.
It was me. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank goodness.
That's the first time I've been in one, so that's what
I
happened.
don't
Glad
think we've
you
ever had
decided
a
to stay.
I know, we broke the camera.
Come on, bud. Let's do it again.
I didn't know there were film cameras anymore.
Yeah, we'll make better faces
Yeah.
next time.
This is exciting enough that I wanted to make sure we got it.
Congratulations again. If it doesn't work this time, we'll just make it well. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. What grade are you in? Third.
Next we get a timer too. Hard analytics, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. 15. Well, no, the next one is ours.
Okay.
So we were just saying at the budget meeting, in between meetings, that you just never know what's gonna happen in these meetings sometimes, and there we go, so. Next item of business is Ford Analytics. We, as a city, just for the public, we commissioned recently an employee satisfaction survey, which we've been trying to accomplish for some time, and we did get this accomplished. And so what we're about to discuss are the results of that survey. And part of the reason why the timing for this survey is so good for us is that it also coincides, hopefully, with the hiring of our new city manager. So we'll kind of have a baseline here for to gauge growth over the next year. We'll probably do this again in a year. And it also gives, hopefully, our employees some knowledge that we are concerned about your well-being and your comments, and so it's good timing for everybody. So we have Dr. Stephen Neely, I believe, is here. Yes, welcome, sir.
So I'm hoping if I do a really good job, that I'm going to get invited to Space Day. That sounds.
Well, we'll get back to you.
Sounds pretty amazing. So, I had sent a PowerPoint. I'm hoping that can go up if possible. Definitely don't want to be
There it
looking
is.
at me. Nobody wants that. Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you, and for the opportunity to assist you with this research. It's vital to measure employee engagement always, but especially now, as noted with the leadership transition, with the fact that many employees right now are undergoing career transitions as part of what we keep calling the Great Resignation. Organizations are dealing with a lot of turnover, trying to get a handle on that as best they can. So it's a great time to be looking at the state of your workforce. I want to focus today, hopefully everyone has received the report, correct? Excellent. So I want to focus today on just some of the key takeaways, but I am available at any time to discuss the report in more depth, to look at, provide other pieces of data if they would be of value to you and so forth. But for the sake of time today and not boring everyone's awake so far. So for the sake of time, I just want to focus on the key takeaways. Do I have control of that somewhere? Is that
You can.
right? Oh, here, this. Okay, excellent.
Turn it on and point this way.
Point this way, okay? I'm sorry.
That's
That's
okay.
another one of those things where you never know what's gonna happen.
Ah, the green light. There you go. Excellent.
There we go.
See, this is why I need to go to Space Day, right? Okay. So what we did is we conducted a survey, a web-based survey that the city helped to administer to employees. We had four different invitations to complete the survey sent between July 18th and August 5th. And we received 119 completed responses. This represents about 37% of the city's workforce, which is on par for what you would typically see response-wise to an employee engagement survey. Certainly, we always want to see greater engagement. My biggest recommendation, and I noted this up front to the team from the city when I spoke with you, my biggest recommendation is to make sure employees understand what you're doing with this data. Make sure they realize that you're using this data, taking it seriously, making recommendations and changes on the basis of it, and that will help to increase participation in surveys, in internal surveys as you move forward. The sample is very representative of employees balanced across length of employment, balanced across supervisory responsibilities. The sample, when you hear all of these data, when you interpret all of these, it's important to keep in mind the sample does skew toward white male respondents. We had less than 1% of respondents identify themselves as African American, less than 5% as Hispanic. We had about 30% who indicated that they would prefer not to identify their race or ethnicity, which is always a factor with employee engagement surveys. In some departments and some units, they're just small enough that there's a concern that that information could be identifying. But it's something to keep in mind as you interpret the results. So a couple of the key takeaways that I want to highlight, and I believe I have 6. Overall job satisfaction in the city is good. We have about 90+% of employees saying they like their job with the city. Most employees say they look forward to coming to work every day. They rate the city as an excellent or good place to work on balance. So very positive foundational results. There were some concerns raised over employee morale in the survey. And that's a minority opinion, but still an important one always to keep in mind. What's interesting in this case is that employees themselves are rating their satisfaction high, but seem to be expressing some concern about their coworkers, if morale is high among their coworkers, which is a very interesting finding. It demonstrates, first of all, a very sensitive workforce to the concerns of other employees. And so it's something to keep in mind. But overall, the foundational aspect of job satisfaction in the city looks very positive. The other thing that really, really excited me as I looked at your results is that you have very, very high public service motivation among your workforce. To be quite honest, I've been doing surveys like this for 8 to 10 years. This might be the highest public service motivation and task satisfaction I've seen in any employee engagement survey. So just not to get down the academic rabbit hole, but to clarify those terms, public service motivation measures that intrinsic desire to serve the public in your work. We all want jobs that we find rewarding. For some folks, that reward comes from knowing that they're serving others. And then task satisfaction refers to kind of the idea of, do you view your work as something energizing and rewarding, or do you view your work as something you have to get done because that's your chore, your task? So we want the former. We want employees to see their work as rewarding and energizing. We want them to see it as something that renews their energy, returns their energy, not something that drains their energy. And the city rated excellently in both of those areas. 99% of employees say that they understand how their job contributes to the mission of the city. That's the highest number I've ever had in one of these surveys. It's an excellent indicator that the city makes it clear to employees how their work matters, and that they can see their role in the big picture. They don't feel like they're just kind of punching buttons and entering data, but with no idea of how it's serving the community on the other end. We see very high goal congruence among employees in the city. Employees saying that their values match the values of the city. That's a great number, 87%. 90% of employees saying that they feel a sense of accomplishment in their work. And again, the highest number I think I've seen in one of these surveys, 98% saying that they're proud of the work they do for the city. That is task satisfaction and public service motivation are essential for the foundation of a good public sector workplace. And the city, again, is rated excellently in both of those areas. So those are numbers that really excited me as I went through them. I double checked them all to make sure. And they're all accurate. They're very positive. And so when these numbers are bad, you're going to have lots of problems and you're not going to have the foundation you need to fix them. These numbers are great in this case. So I will talk about 2 areas that I'll just note that I would recommend some further action on, further exploration on the part of the city, because you all are paying me in part to help you come up with recommendations for what to do. Nothing in your survey results are extremely alarming, but one of the things that did stand out is that a non-trivial minority of employees, about 26%, when I say a non-trivial minority, I mean less than half of employees, but still enough that we want to consider what's going on there, raised concerns over perceptions of equity. And so that is not inconsistent with what we see in other public sector workplaces, but it is something that we want to explore. We don't want any instances of inequity or discrimination in the workplace. So I offered a couple of recommendations for kind of digging into that further. Those include just reviewing, and this is a good thing to do every couple years anyway, as best practices and technology evolve, reviewing those confidential employee reporting procedures where employees can kind of voice complaints without fear of retribution. Potentially conducting focus groups to kind of dig a little bit more into the instances when employees might feel that they're not clear on, or that there could be instances of inequity in the treatment of employees based on any number of differences. Again, none of these numbers are woefully inconsistent with what we tend to see, and we've seen some really bad ones over time in certain places, which obviously we won't talk about. But we've seen where this is a systemic problem that kind of invades the workforce. That's not the case here, but they are significant enough concerns that you want to kind of try to consider digging into those a little bit further. The other area, and I think this will come as very little surprise, the area where we saw the most employee concerns raised was in the case of compensation. Everybody is just struggling right now with inflation, with rising costs. We're seeing this across sectors. This isn't a uniquely public sector or private sector phenomenon. We're seeing this everywhere where employees' wages simply aren't keeping pace with the rising price of their bills. And so it's unsurprising that this is the most commonly identified area in the survey where there were some concerns voiced. 53% of employees disagreed when asked about their compensation being sufficient. And there were some dissatisfaction raised with benefits. Now, I want to point out, especially since apparently we're on record here, I do want to point out, I'm aware that the city's aware of some of these challenges. They've undergone salary surveys and studies. They're in the process of addressing those issues. So I think the survey results just underscore the importance of that. The other thing that stood out was employees voicing a desire for more opportunities for career advancement and development. I think we had about 43%, so about 4 in 10 said, I don't picture myself getting promoted in the city. Now, that's not always an option. There are always going to be kind of terminal job tracks where promotion just simply isn't a possibility. And so those responses aren't necessarily negative in that regard. However, we always want to retain as much institutional knowledge and experience as we can. And so one of the recommendations I offered in the report is considering incorporating career planning or career mapping into that kind of ongoing. So I assume you do annual employee evaluations is most common. So incorporating a conversation into those evaluations that would address career planning goals for employees. And then the other area was that a lot of employees, and forgive me for not remembering this exact number off the top of my head, but a lot of employees indicated that they weren't familiar. So about a third of employees, a little over 32%, indicated they weren't familiar with the city's tuition reimbursement options. And so making sure that employees are aware of the benefits that are available to them would be a great way also of helping to show that there are opportunities for career planning and for career development and skill development. Sometimes that requires a bit of an informational campaign. We do those every so often, and we have employee turnover, and that kind of familiarity and awareness fades. And so those are a couple of recommendations to address what was the biggest area of concern voiced by employees. And the other really high point that I want to emphasize that was really positive in the survey was those supervisory relationships, the relationship between a direct supervisor and their direct reports or their subordinates. Those were, again, some of the highest I've observed in employee engagement surveys. 90% of your employees say that they are treated fairly by their supervisor. That is not always what we see in employee engagement surveys. 88% say that they receive frequent praise from their supervisor. This is a number that I was very pleasantly surprised by. To be quite honest, I'm not sure this is a question that would fall under the rubric of traditional employee engagement research, but it's one that I've started building into my surveys because it intrigues me and because I think it's important for organizations. 87% say that their supervisors encourage them to come up with new and improved ways to do their job. That's probably, again, the highest number I've seen in a public sector employee engagement survey. So what I'm seeing when I look at your direct supervisory relationships, I'm seeing a culture of positivity in those relationships. I'm seeing a culture of innovation that's a very big deal. Public sector workplaces don't always have a culture of innovation. It's just the reality of the field. And so seeing that is really, really positive. 88% saying, hey, my supervisor listens to my ideas. Again, not always the case in public sector workplaces. So very positive results in relation to those supervisory relationships, which we want to keep in mind exist at all different levels throughout the organization. And then the last key takeaway I had, and I apologize if I'm running over my time, the city leadership was rated positively by employees. The one concern that was raised when we asked a series of questions about city leadership was goal setting. Does the city have clear, attainable goals that it's making progress toward? And I talked a little bit with the interim city manager about this after kind of pulling all the data down, because I know that the city does a lot of strategic planning. I was told very robust annual strategic planning, if I'm not mistaken. And so what that indicates to me in the survey results is that those goals that are getting set and the attainment toward those goals, that information might not be making its way to employees in a way that they can kind of see what the city is doing, what kind of progress it's making toward its goals. So I made some recommendations in the report about potentially, just communicating that information a little more directly, a little more frequently, and also possibly including more employee involvement in the strategic planning process in an effort to help to inform those goals and also to inform the workforce about those goals and what the city's strategic initiatives are, what progress it's making toward those. And again, I think I put a note in here as well, but this section of the survey in particular on city leadership and goal setting, this is particularly difficult to interpret in the midst of a leadership transition, because we ask a kind of standard battery of questions, and yet we're dealing with different experiences. We're dealing with a past city administration. We're dealing with an interim city administration. We're looking forward to a new city administration. And so that obscures the interpretation of these data a bit. This is something I would definitely recommend following up on and asking employees about a year later to kind of see how that shifts over time once you have a more long-term administration in place. So those are the key takeaways. I've kind of already touched on some of these recommendations, so I'm not going to repeat them here. But again, I'll reiterate that I am happy to provide any more detailed data I can, happy to answer any questions you have now, or if you want to chew on any of the information for a while and email me with questions moving forward, happy to talk about those with you anytime. My number's not on there. My email's on there. It's probably the best since this is on the record. But yeah, my email's on there. If you have questions and email me, I can give you my number. We can talk by phone or Zoom or whatever would work for you. I can't really handle this though. That's just too weird for me. All right. I'm not sure that my back's any better, but all right. So anyway, is there any questions I can answer at the time or address?
Council members, questions? Councilmember Abel.
You said that a response rate like what we got at about 37% is pretty much on par for when you do these type of surveys?
Yeah, I've seen employee engagement surveys range from the high 20s to the high 40s. So certainly moving forward, you would like to see a little bit of improvement in the response rate. But for the first time in a while, at least to my knowledge, doing an employee engagement survey, it's not a bad response rate. We always walk into internal organizational surveys thinking we'll get everyone to respond. That doesn't happen. People are busy. People get thousands. Some people get hundreds of emails in a week, and so it's just hard to really get those response rates where you would like them to be. But certainly by showing employees that you're using the information, that it's being acted on, that's a great way to increase. Anytime you need feedback from employees in the future, the more confident they are that the information will be used, the better your response rate will be.
And to follow up on that, you said that it was skewed toward white male respondents, just because that's who responded. But do you compare those numbers to the actual population of the city, or is that just the demographic?
I don't have access to the HR files, obviously, to know what the workforce composition is. It wouldn't be difficult to do that. But again, you have about 30% who chose not to identify their their race, ethnicity in particular, some who chose not to identify their gender. And so even if you, like, what you won't see in the report is a breakdown of results by any of those factors, because the groups simply aren't large enough to draw meaningful inferences from.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Donahue.
How did you portray or explain the anonymity behind their responses?
In the introduction,
Right.
so the survey introduction is provided on page 22 of the report. And it does note that their responses will remain anonymous. No data will be collected or shared that could reveal your personal identity. And one of the safeguards that was taken to do that, two safeguards that are taken to do that. First of all, in Qualtrics, the survey program we use, I shut off, even though you all don't necessarily see this in Qualtrics, I shut off the IP collection. So it doesn't track computers, which is more of an issue when we do kind of opinion surveying. But the other thing is that we did not collect, we had a conversation about whether or not to collect departmental identifiers, and the city chose not to for that reason, to ensure that nobody would be saying, hey, you know, I'm this age, I'm this gender, and I work in this department, which becomes identifying. So there were some steps taken, and they were informed up front that the responses would be confidential.
Okay, thank you.
Council members, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. A very good presentation. Thank you very much. Did you find any contradictory responses?
I think the only piece that stood out to me as a bit contradictory, a bit paradoxical, was that idea that job satisfaction overall appears to be very high, and yet there were more folks saying overall employee morale might not be as high. And that was interesting because what I'm hearing there is generally satisfied with, I like my job, I like coming to work every day. I'm not sure that's the case for the rest of the organization, is kind of how I was interpreting that, which is a very interesting finding in the sense that, A, it says that your employees are actually thinking about how their coworkers feel, which is great. On the other hand, it also suggests there might be a little bit of an undercurrent among some workers who say, I don't think morale is good in the organization, even if I like my job. My suspicion is that a lot of that morale issue right now ties to the salary issues. And we're seeing, that's not unique to Temple Terrace. We're just seeing that everywhere. We're seeing that morale is slipping as employees feel like the money they're making just isn't going as far as it used to do, you know, for the same job that they're doing. And in many cases, they're doing more work because there's been resignations, there are vacant positions. And so a lot of folks feel like, hey, I'm doing more work now, I'm making the same money, and it's not going as far as it used to. And that's a morale killer anywhere, in any workforce.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just want one question or comment, Dr. Neely, is that, as you know, we're in the process, hopefully, of hiring a new city manager. Sometime before next year, we will probably ask the new city manager to maybe touch base with you and sit with you and kind of go through this, because obviously they don't have the benefit of this. And even if they had it now, it won't mean as much if they knew it now as they would if 6 months from now, maybe. So, and maybe talk about ways to either dig a little deeper or to figure out how we can best address some of these concerns so that we're clearing the right forest. We're not just, we can't do everything for all people.
Sure.
The pay thing's easy. I mean, we know what we have to do with that. But there's other things in here that are interesting, like, I'm happy with my job, but I think morale is low. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting finding, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll
Absolutely
probably,
happy at any point in time to speak with that individual and share any other thoughts I can.
okay.
Mayor, I have just one thing.
Yes.
I've also been working with Dr. Neely on a citizen satisfaction survey that will probably kick off into October. And that's something I would share. I think I informed you of it in an update.
Yeah.
But that's something I'll share with the new city manager as well to follow up. So you can kind of get the citizen side of.
Kind of an internal and an external,
Right.
like a climate. Okay.
If I could add a small caveat there, that's my day job, so to speak. I'm a faculty member at USF, which is unrelated to the work I'm doing for you here, but that'll actually be a USF graduate class that will work on developing a survey instrument that the city can do as it sees fit with from there.
Right. And just so the directors and the public and everybody understand what it is we're doing here, we've been hearing the internal concerns for quite some time, and we're trying to get our arms around that and see what really is going on, what you and your employees are truly feeling and thinking so that we can address it. And we also want to know what the community is thinking too. I mean, we hear from, like all cities, all communities, you hear from a vocal minority, or few people. But we have almost 30,000 people out there, and we don't hear from the vast majority of them. So we're trying to kind of assess where we are, what we have that works really well externally, internally, to see what we can build upon and maybe what we need to scrap and shift gears on here and see, where we need to go. So best way to do that is with data, and that's what we're trying to get. And we have a new city manager coming on board. And so this council can set the right policies and set the right goals for the new city manager and really try to move the city forward, which is what we're trying to do. So, good.
I think it'd be important too for the directors to share the survey with their departments and their employees. Because there's a lot of positives there that I think they should be aware of and work towards. Then we can explain where some of the negatives came in and how we're working on trying to fix that. So I think it's important that we share this information.
I absolutely do too. And there's some things that when I read this, I want to jump in. It's like, oh, we need to do this or this. But, it's a transition time too, so I'm got to slow down here a little bit. But. Dr. Neely, thank you so much for your work. Very valuable, important to us, and I'm sure we will be in touch some more. So.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Everyone have a wonderful night.
Thank you too, Doctor. So we do have one other, I don't know if it's a presentation, but we do have President and CEO of the Uptown Chamber here. I wanted to give Mr. Lawson a couple of minutes if he'd like to say hello to us. Hello?
I would, Mr. Mayor, and just share a few words. Say, Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you. Councilmember Donahue, thank you not only for your support, your past leadership, your vision, and your love for the chamber. What I'd like to do for a few minutes is talk about the chamber where we are today and what's going on, so you're fully aware. I came in March of this year as the interim president CEO, and I'm leaving September 14th at our quarterly meeting, and we are looking for a new head of our organization. But during this time as the interim, my job has been to dig in deep under the leadership of our board chair, Terrace Irving, ask the hard questions about where are we today, how have we succeeded, how we failed as an organization, and what's our value proposition to this community. And Miranda Hilton served as the president CEO for 3 years, and she loves this community, loved the chamber, and was dedicated to it. But she had to leave because she realized that with her love and dedication, there's questions about where we're moving forward. Are we effective? What's our value proposition? So coming in under the leadership of Terrace Irving, looked at what have we done in the past that was right, what was wrong, how we get better, and found that folks back in 2019 who decided to change the name of the Greater Temple Terrace Chamber of Commerce to the Uptown Chamber of Commerce had great intent. They looked at the value proposition, looked at the possibility of growth, but even though they had great intent, the execution was poor. It was not done in the right way. The process failed, and we are living with that result. And this board, since I've been here from March to when I leave, has been real and asked those hard questions. What's working, what's not? And this board realizes, and we had our board meeting last Monday, and we asked ourselves, are we aligned with moving forward and serving our community? We said yes. And what we'd like to do is get closer to the city, get closer to our roots, and work together to change the name in the right way, where there's a proper process, where there's transparency, right? And thank the city manager and also Greg Pauley, our business manager there, for supporting us at our different events, meeting with me over the last couple of months. And this guy right here, holding my feet to the fire. Because when I meet with him, he's like Henry V of Agincourt, saying, look, do you know your position? I say, yes, I do. But our position is that as a community, we need a strong chamber. That matters, that's relevant. So it's our goal to change the name to the chamber, the Uptown Chamber, hopefully to the Temple Terrace Uptown Chamber of Commerce, but follow a process that makes sense. Meet with each one of you and talk to you about this process. Ask our members, is this the right thing to do? And do it in a way that's inclusive, not exclusive, where you're surprised. And over the course of this time I've been here, and as a council member, Donnie will tell you, I'm lousy with admin, but I'm great with strategy. And meeting with the mayor regularly. We've developed several programs that matter, where we brought in United States Senator Rick Scott, who had an economic development roundtable with business leaders. Last week, we had the former head of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, the chief economist, talk about the economy of Tampa, Florida, and the U.S. We filmed it and we'll share it to our members. At the end of this month, we'll have Joe York, the president of Florida and the Caribbean section of AT&T, do a Zoom call for our members that we'll share with everyone. Also, we have a key lobbyist in September who will speak about what's happening in Tallahassee, so our folks understand what's going on. And although we know that we're purple, and may have a Republican on one side, the U.S. Senator, we've reached out to Commissioner Nikki Fried, who's willing to do a Zoom presentation, on the cannabis industry. And also knowing that we're a connector, reached out to former Florida Senate President Wilton Simpson to help our Temple Terrace Republican Club and talk about what's going on in his backwoods, right? So it's connecting our people with the real issues and decide, are we a social club or economic development organization? So that's where we are right now as an organization. We want to be relevant, real, and transparent. And as we pick a new leader, we realize we don't need a president CEO, but an executive director who's between myself and Miranda, who has the skills to work that back office and also connect with our politicians and our people. So, Mr. Mayor, I want to personally thank you for your transparency. Councilwoman, thank you for your love. And each one of you, thank you for sticking by us as an organization. Because as we go from Jeree Irving to Eddie Birch as our leader in September, we are committed to ensuring that the Chamber serves our community. Our core is Temple Terrace, our more is Uptown, but we're here together as one family. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, so,
Am I pepped up now?
are you pepped up?
I'm pepped up.
All right, good. That's what we need, is a pepped up Councilmember Donahue.
She's always got that.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next item of business is a Board of Adjustment appointments, actually several of them. There are 5 regular and 2 alternate member appointments to the Board of Adjustment for terms extending from, and don't fill out your ballots just yet, because trust me.
Okay.
For terms extending from August 16th, 22 until August 16th, 2024, whenever possible, in making appointments to the board. City Council, this is our new rules. City Council shall seek a membership with diverse economic, geographic, social, and occupational representation, and when possible, include members qualified or experienced in the fields of archaeology, architecture, architectural history, business ownership, construction, engineering, history, landscaping, law, local government, planning, or real estate. The city received applications from the following. Again, hold on the voting. Marissa Robinson, who has experience in real estate and in history. Stephanie Young has experience in architecture as a design architect. Mark McKinney has experience with business, as he has owned his own consulting business since 2018. Eric Kravitz is experienced in law, is an attorney. Tony Anderson has experience in construction. She is a construction project manager in real estate and a licensed mortgage broker. Stan Cope has experience with engineering as a senior manager over a team of computer managers and business ownership, and is also a small business owner with multiple investment and rental properties. And Brian Longworth has experience in law and is a partner attorney with the Temple Terrace Law Group. So, whenever possible, board members should reside in different neighborhoods of the city and not be concentrated in one area of the city. Upon review, applicants Marissa Robinson and Eric Kravitz both live on the same street. I don't know where on that street, just on the same street. All other applicants' homes are spread throughout the city. Again, please don't vote just yet till we're done yet. Now, how many of these 7 folks are here? If you would raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So here's what I'd like to do, ladies and gentlemen, and you can just push and shove and everything, and who gets to the podium in what order is up to you. But I'd like you to come up and just briefly, a minute or so, don't reread your resume, but if you would like to introduce yourself to the council and tell us why you're interested in this. You don't have to if you don't want to, but now would be the time.
Don't everybody run up here.
Yeah, I was joking about the pushing and shoving. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. I apologize for trickling in a few minutes late. I had a client who didn't really have a very good understanding of where I needed to be. I tried very hard to explain it, but sometimes it just happens. My apologies. Councilors, I'm a homeowner in the city of Temple Terrace. I've been in Tampa resident.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we don't know who you are.
Your name.
You're going to have to
My name
get,
is Byron Longworth.
there we go, thank you.
So I own the Temple Terrace Law Group, which is the building almost right next to here. It's on top of Five Star Pizza. I've been in the Tampa Bay area for most of my life. I was born in Tampa. I acquired my home in Temple Terrace. My mom and I bought it together. She owned a business in Temple Terrace for over 30 years called Blackstone. She unfortunately passed away, but I opened my firm to be right by her, and then ended up acquiring this house after she passed away. So I refinanced it, got in my name. I went through on my own, outside of my, not even related to what I know how to do through my career, but on my own, I applied for multiple different permits myself. I read the rules extensively about the different requirements in the city of of how to build stuff within following the code. I know the setback requirements. I became pretty well versed in how to read blueprints, as well as an ability to be able to, I know quite a few different requirements about whether or not when a contractor is needed, when a contractor is not needed, and different things that are allowed and not allowed through just internal research. Through my career, I've done litigation of non-permitted work through the city, as well as other types of real estate matters. It's not really what we focus on entirely most of the time, but in terms of what's at stake here, of being able to help people get approved or disapprove their zoning, like if they want to build a project, that if it's going to be approved or not. A lot of times I'm aware that there are ways to build a project without actually breaking the needing a variance that they might even be unaware of, simply by moving the building slightly or changing it just a little tiny bit. So they can still basically get what they want without actually granting a variance necessarily. I believe that this city could use someone who's able to help people in that regard, and hopefully be able to give people what they want without granting as many variances necessarily, but still helping people be able to do what they need to do in with their properties. I hope that you consider me, that if you guys have any questions, I'm available. Please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Longworth. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kravitz, you're sitting up front. Oh, she almost ran you over. No, come on up here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for having me up here. And I just want to say Chuck's Market has really good star fruit. Everyone go get some. Yeah, thanks to everyone who voted for me last time. I'm back for more votes. So if
Mr.
anyone...
Kravitz, I know who you are, but I'm not sure everybody does. So
I'm Eric Kravitz, resident of Temple Terrace since December last year, and keen to be engaged because I love working out problems, and I'm got a lot of free time on my hands right now. I've relocated here from Germany, where I lived the last 20 years. I was a lawyer there. I had a real estate portfolio of about 13 units of commercial and residential, around 14,000 square feet, and still doing that. So it's been great fun, and I'm looking into different opportunities here and developing things here as well. And one of those things I could maybe help with is the Board of Adjustment. So I've had a number of discussions previously about the mass resignation that just occurred, and I'd be able to bring a little bit of stability, hopefully, to that group, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kravitz, and I must warn you about telling a group of 5 elected officials that you have a lot of time on your hands. That's a very risky thing to do.
You have enough experience with me, Mr. Mayor, to know that I'm not going to be a nuisance.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Tony Anderson. I'm born and raised here in Tampa. Went to Chamberlain High School, played softball at USF, so very familiar with the community. I've lived in Temple Terrace since 2016. I was a project manager at the University of South Florida for construction for 3 years, and now I am currently a contractor with Moffitt as a construction project manager. That lovely bridge going over McKinley is my project right now, so I'm the main project manager on that. Very familiar with Temple Terrace Variance Board because I've presented in front of them several times. My friend Gus back there has helped me in many scenarios. I just completed a 1,700 square foot addition to my home here in Temple Terrace. So just familiar with the code, familiar with the process, and really looking to help people figure that out and like my friend here, kind of read through the lines and see what we actually need variances for, what we don't need variances for, and hopefully make some updates that may be a little outdated.
So, Ms. Anderson, I do have a question for you. I try not to ask a lot of questions, but I do have one. It has come to my attention, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just learned of this within just a few hours before the meeting. So I understand that you have a current application for a variance.
I do have a current application for variance. It was supposed to be on the June agenda. It got pushed to July, which got canceled. August got canceled. So now I'm waiting for the September meeting. So I did talk to Kristen when I applied, and I said I still would love to be on the Board of Adjustments, but I obviously would not be able to serve on the first meeting where my variance is going to come up. So.
Okay. So do you know when the first meeting, the next meeting of
September 22nd.
September 22nd? Is that so?
Yeah, it's September, yeah. I'll go.
So, okay.
I know that makes things weird.
Well, maybe, but I just wanted to have some conversation about it, so thank you so much. We had one more, didn't we, sir? Yes. So you were smart, you waited till the end so you didn't get trampled.
I didn't want to get trampled, trying not to.
Right.
Mayor, City Council, my name is Stan Cope. I have been a resident of Temple Terrace since 2016. I am not a Florida native. I'm just somebody that hated the cold, so I'm very, very happy to be here, and I can assure you I'm not leaving. It's a wonderful sound. It's a wonderful community that I've been happy to be a part of. While I certainly don't have as many of the qualifications, some of the folks that have come up here, I do have over 10 years with state government. I had 35 years with the United States Army. I'm really, really good at working through regulations and trying to figure out exactly what's supposed to happen and how it's supposed to happen. As you're aware, I was an alternate on the previous board. I only got to attend one meeting before all of the changes, but I appreciated your confidence before, and I would be happy and pleased to serve again. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cope. And unless somebody's come in, are there other applicants here? I didn't see any before. Okay. So, Mr. Mueller, the issue with one of the candidates having a pending case, assuming that the board wanted to appoint the candidate, what would be the best course of action to avoid any conflicts or awkwardness for other board members who have to make a decision about involving could we delay the appointment of that one person by 2 months if we chose to do that? Would that be a good course?
That's a potential course. One of the fortunate things is that the board itself hasn't gelled as a group yet. So I don't know what impact the fact that Ms. Anderson having a application before the board would have. We have a board that needs to get trained, and it sounds like everybody who's talked so far understands the restrictions and what can be the difficulty of getting a variance and not have. The concern, of course, for everybody here is whether or not her
becoming a member of the board, either as an alternate or as a regular member, what impact that would have and what, whether that would influence in some way whether or not she got the variance, rather than the actual facts and circumstances of the case. So I guess the bottom line is the option is could potentially become an alternate. It might be for an alternate, or there could be a delay, or you could appoint at this time. And I think she's already mentioned the fact that she wouldn't plan on appearing or being on the board for that first meeting, the meeting that she would be at. Her application would be heard, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. So 5 of these candidates would be appointed as regular members and 2 of them would be appointed as alternates. And that is all for the council to decide here tonight.
Yes, and it would preferably be to try and get the 5 regular members filled so we can have a full board.
But your
Especially with trainings coming.
intent would be to do the training for all 7 new members at the same time.
Yes, we are planning on having, by the way, that's probably something important to tell, the end of this month, there would be training going on. And again, probably a little refresher training before that first meeting, because we know this will all be a new experience for y'all.
Okay. Council members, we have 2 ballots. I wanted you to hold off on voting until we had some discussion here about, so that's why I asked you to hold off. So are there questions about the process? We have 2 ballots. The second one was only going to be necessary in case we have a tie like we've had in the past. So we only need 1 ballot, hopefully. We good?
How do we mark the 1 ballot, since we have alternates and?
So,
Are we ranking them, or?
so city clerk, you want us to put, no, we're not ranking. We're just, you want us to put an A next to, this could be a confusing mess here. How do you want us to do this? Because we have to pick 2 alternates.
I thought you did a wonderful job when you were doing the city manager one, so I figured we, if you guys wanted to have a conversation about what your top candidate was maybe, and go from there.
No, I don't want to do that. That's not right. We got people trying to volunteer for a job and now we're telling, well, I like this one better than that one. I don't do that.
RA, regular alternate.
Right, but then we're going to get a tie for alternates and,
Well, then we'll use the other ballot if we had a tie.
all right,
I don't know the way to do it.
mark them with Rs and As and let's see what happens.
I feel like they should be playing the music from.
I know, so we need
Jeopardy
some
or
Jeopardy
something.
music or something.
Da-da.
I have a feeling this is going to be difficult.
Just like the bicycle.
We're not going to get 5 people to pick the same alternates. There's no way that's going to happen.
You never, ever know.
Have faith.
I have faith that we have 7 good candidates.
Yeah.
I have a lot of faith about that.
It's a good basis point now.
Time's a raise game.
This is like some of the toughest stuff we do, because we have 7 great candidates.
Yeah.
We do.
Especially if they see you've listened and done things.
And there's no pressure on the city clerk to get it done.
Can I start the timer?
35 eyes, 35 sets of eyes are looking at her.
No pressure.
No pressure, she's sweating.
Let's let her.
So we had 4 votes for Stan Cope. We had 4 votes for Eric Kravitz. We had 5 votes for Byron Longworth. We had 2 votes for Mark McKinney. We had 5 votes for Marissa Robinson and 5 votes for Stephanie Young.
Okay, so,
So the top 5 were Stan Cope, Eric Kravitz, Byron Longworth, Marissa Robinson, and Stephanie Young.
okay, so just tell us who the 2 alternates are gonna be. If we're gonna do it by this, by,
So the 2 alternates will be Tony Anderson and Mark McKinney.
okay, and that's by volume of votes. So what difference did the R and the A make?
It helped me tally.
Otherwise, she wouldn't know how many were regular, how many were alternate. The votes are the ones that got regular votes.
Okay.
Yes, and
Yeah, I think I'm following.
Well, for the audience, let's make sure you understand. All
Okay.
5 of us voted for the 2 people as regular, correct? The 2 people who got 5 votes, all 5 voted for them to be a regular. Okay, so,
3 people got 5 votes.
right.
Okay, and just so everybody's clear as we can be, let me put it that way. If I understand this correctly, all 7 of you got affirmative votes by all 5 of us. We want you, all right? All of you, all of you are valued and all of you got voted. It's just, in some strange way of who got the most votes, 2 of you are alternates. And those 2 are Tony Anderson and Mark McKinney. That does not mean that we value you less. It just means that we only have 5 positions. Alternates very often become regular members, so please do not assess any perceived value of worth to this vote, okay? So now, council members, we need a motion to accept the voting tally, placing Tony Anderson and Mark McKinney onto the board as alternates for the term mentioned, and the other 5 applicants as regular board members.
So moved.
Second. Oh, that's weak. All right, we have a motion and a second. No, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
No.
All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all for your volunteering. We really appreciate it. Anything can happen at these meetings. Ladies and gentlemen, has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of the August 2nd City Council meeting? If their minutes are acceptable, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections to the minutes? If none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. The minutes are approved. Next are persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. I don't think this is going to be a problem judging by the crowd, but we do have a 30-minute time limit for this section of our meeting. If necessary, we will cap this portion of the meeting at 30 minutes and so that we can continue with our agenda, and then we resume this at the end of the meeting. So everybody will be heard, but we just can only hear 10 people now. We ask that speakers come to the approach the podium and begin with their name and city of residence. There is a 3-minute time limit, and we do like to reassure everybody that your comments are taken seriously. The city manager, your elected officials, and the directors in attendance, and we do follow up. I currently have 1 request to speak. There are forms in the back of the room. If other people would like to address the council, and Mrs. Fernandez, you are recognized. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Allison Fernandez, Temple Terrace City resident. I'm here today as a Booster Club member at King High School. I really want to encourage everybody in the community to find a school and volunteer at it. And I'm here for King High School. Specifically today, I want to thank Jimmy Chaccio and Jeff Lupton for helping us clean the concession stand so that we're ready for football. On Friday, it'll be our first home game. And we encourage you all to come out. We're a Temple Terrace school. I went to King High School. I've had 4 King students, one's still there. A lot of people who live in Temple Terrace went through King High School or had children go there. So we're really hoping that as a community, we can give back, volunteer. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. A lot of the coaches are responsible for field maintenance, not the mowing and that sort of thing, but all of the extra details that make the field more attractive and hospitable. Same goes for the concession stand. So I'm encouraging everybody to come out, pick a school, and give, those of you who said you have a lot of time on your hands, we can use you. But it's more than that. A school is truly the center of a community. It's where children meet friends. It's where people make lifelong friends. It's where the community comes together over maybe a sporting event or a band concert. So we have a long history and tradition with King High School in particular as our high school, and I encourage you all to, if you want to get involved, let me know, or James Chambers is happily serving as our Booster Club president, so he can also help you. And if you have any questions, you all should know how to reach me, and if you don't, you can find me. But again, I really encourage you all as the school year is starting to get out and get involved with our schools. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Fernandez. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council? Mrs. Snelling. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Ellen Snelling, and I live in Temple Terrace. I just want to do 2 quick PSAs. So the first one I want to talk about is Delta 8 THC. I have talked about that before. This is the first city council where I brought it up, and it's really gone a long way through the county that I'll talk about. But just so you know what I'm talking about, these are candies. It looks exactly like Skittles, but it's loaded with THC. I bought them at a convenience store near Temple Terrace, in Temple Terrace. Nerds Rope, again, looks exactly like Nerds Rope, the children's candy, 250 milligrams of Delta 8 THC. And then this I bought at a convenience store that actually is in Tampa, but it's very close by USF. And it's got 850 milligrams of something called THCO, which is stronger than the THC in marijuana. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit because school's starting. And every time I bring this up, parents are not aware, teachers are not aware. Some of the school nurses that I spoke to last week were not aware. So just to, talk to your children, if you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, about this, that don't share candy at school unless you know what it is, and make sure it doesn't have THC in it, because this can be purchased at a convenience store and gas station, and unfortunately, Florida has not set age limits on this. So I wanted to thank the Code Compliance Director, Tom Baroni, because he has worked with Joe Gross with the county of Hillsborough County, and he's going around and checking the places that sell these products within Temple Terrace and making sure they're complying to, there are a few restrictions on Florida law, and he's making sure they have permits and are following those restrictions. And then in September, the county should be meeting and possibly set forth an ordinance to make 21 the age for all of these products and make sure they're locked up or behind the counter and have warning signs. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update on that. And the last thing I wanted to say is about voting. So early voting's in full force. You can go to the library, and there's like 10 other sites around the county through the 21st, and then the primary day is the 23rd. So please, all of you, use your constitutional right to vote. Get out there and vote. Even if you're NPA, even though it's a primary, you still vote for judges and school board. And please, this is just my opinion, vote no on the school tax, which will say school board referendum, ad valorem millage election. It's raising your property tax. And Temple Terrace is lowering our property tax, but the school board wants to increase it. So just take a look at that. Thank you.
Mrs. Snelling, just a real quick question. I know I'm kind of breaking with protocol a little bit, but I know we got a long thing, so I'll never get to ask this later. Do you know if the school district is doing anything to educate their students about these products?
We are actually, the Anti-Drug Alliance is working with the parents at this point. We've gone to the back-to-school fairs over the summer, and we're educating parents. We have a fact sheet. The school nurses have all been educated on it and given a fact sheet. So we're in the process of doing it. But if there's any way, I would like to go more directly, to the schools and make sure that the parents and the students are aware of this.
Have you been to the school, not the district, but the school board to,
No, not
to give
yet.
this
That's
presentation?
on my list, though. I probably should do that. I thought about speaking to like one of them, like maybe Lynn Gray or one of the school board members, and then going from there.
Okay.
But that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Snelling, may I invite you to our next school support meeting?
Sure.
It'll be on, I believe it's the 12th of September, I think. We'll let you know. We'll send you a formal invitation.
Okay.
Talk to the liaisons to the individual schools.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Any way I can reach out to the schools, because right now that's like my primary focus, to make sure everybody's aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to address the council? Very well. Next item is a resolution approving a task work order to C.W. Roberts Contracting, Inc. for general asphalt resurfacing, and city engineer Brian McCarthy is here to explain. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and today I'm here seeking approval for a task work order to C.W. Roberts for roadway resurfacing work. If I can get the screen, here we go. So on your screen, you'll see the roads that we're looking to resurface. Highlighted in red includes roads within the River Run subdivision. They're the Woodland Ridge Drive, Capwood Avenue, Allenbrook Street, Beltrees Court, East Lake Court, Dorado Court, Dumont Court, Rolling Ridge Place. These roads are the majority of the roads are part of our 5-year resurfacing plan. They're part of the fiscal year 23 road resurfacing work. I pulled them forward into 22 while we wait on the water main projects to finish up in the St. Augustine area. This task work order includes general milling and resurfacing and replacing of the pavement markings. That said, staff recommends City Council approve the expenditure not to exceed $327,000 to C.W. Roberts Contracting for roadway resurfacing work.
Good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions. Questions for the city engineer, Vice Mayor Schisler.
And I assume this is we've already taken this consideration. What are we going to do with the speed humps on Capwood? They going back in?
They will go back in, yes.
Other questions for the city engineer? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution approving the task work order to C.W. Roberts Contracting, Inc. for general asphalt resurfacing.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you. Next item is a resolution approving Hampton Oaks non-ad valorem assessment for fiscal year 22-23. Interim Finance Director Jim Ingram will explain. Welcome, Mr. Ingram.
Good evening, Mayor Ross, City Council. I'm here to present a resolution approving Hampton Oaks non-ad valorem assessment for fiscal year 2022-2023. The City Council created the Hampton Oaks assessment area at the request of the Hampton Oaks Homeowners Association on September 16th, 2014 for street lighting and stormwater management services. Per Florida Statute 197.3632 and Section 2.08 of the city's ordinance, the city must adopt an annual assessment resolution and certify to the tax collector the non-ad valorem assessment roll for the Hampton Oaks area by September 15th. The tax collector will then produce a combined notice of ad valorem and non-ad valorem assessments for the Hampton Oaks assessment areas as described in Florida Statute 196.3635. 43 single-family residential parcels are in the Hampton Oaks assessment area. The total assessment for the Hampton Oaks area is $11,094, or $258 per parcel for the 2022 assessment. Staff recommends that City Council approve a resolution for the 2022 non-ad valorem assessment roll for the Hampton Oaks area and direct the certification of the assessment roll to the Hillsborough tax collector. And I stand for any questions.
Very good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions. Vice Mayor.
How's this calculated? $11,094.
It's $258 per parcel. There's 43 parcels. We get that from, these figures are given to us by the property appraiser.
No.
I'm not sure the rationale behind the 258, if that's what you're asking.
The 11,000 is just the extrapolation of the 258 times the 43. Where does that number come from? Or is this numbers that who's paying the bill? Who pays the ultimate electric bill and the water bill and so forth associated with it? Do we?
This is to provide additional services to that area. That's why it's called a special assessment. So, and this is at the request of the Homeowners Association at Hampton Oaks.
This is them taxing themselves voluntarily.
Yes, thank you.
It's not a number that we developed, it's they developed it themselves.
We just have to
Okay,
approve
that's
their
good.
number.
Okay, that's good. They developed the number themselves, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just a collective.
They've decided to tax themselves. We just have to by law approve their number.
Okay, I just wanted to know where that number came from. Came from them. Okay, good, thank you.
Other questions, council members? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution approving Hampton Oaks not ad valorem assessment for fiscal years 2022 through 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Ingham. The next item involves some financial interests to me as your mayor, and therefore I am going to recuse myself from this whole discussion and pass the gavel over to the vice mayor. We are item number C on the notes. Here, in case you need that.
Okay.
And I will be outside in the lobby. If somebody would please remember to come and get me when they're. Appreciate that.
Okay, item number C, public hearing and second reading ordinance 1531, proposing a city charter amendment. I will open the public hearing. City Attorney Pam Shashone will explain.
This ordinance would be to place on the ballot in November a charter amendment. At the time that the charter was written, and also it's been revised since then, but at that time the mayor did not have voting power. In 2018, there was an amendment to the charter that was approved by the voters, which then made the mayor, it gave the mayor voting power and also made the mayor basically a regular city council member then. The reality is that in addition to that, the mayor has quite a few other duties. As we've seen through COVID, there were many, many meetings to attend. There are many boards now to attend. The Florida League of Cities is something that the mayor is involved in. And the way the charter was written is that it prohibited increasing or approving an increase in compensation for the mayor during the term of office for which the mayor shall have been elected. However, city council members may receive an increase by ordinance at any time. There was not that same restriction. This seemed to be somewhat inequitable, but instead of the council is not trying to simply change this on their own, and in fact, they can't. The council can vote, though, to place this issue before the voters, and they're included in here is the question, should Section 3.04 of the revised charter be amended to remove the prohibition against the mayor's compensation being increased or approved during the term of office for which the mayor shall have been elected, and thereby allowing for an increase in compensation to occur in the same time and manner as for other council members. And then there is a yes or a no. And that is exactly the question that would be placed on November's ballot for the citizens to consider if this council approves this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any public or anybody in the public that has any comments on this issue tonight? Anybody have any questions or anything? Okay. Anybody in council have any questions? Just questions?
No.
Okay. I will close the public hearing. I will ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, relating to the government of said city, amending the revised charter, Article 3, Mayor, Section 3.04, compensation by eliminating the prohibition against increasing or approving an increase of the mayor's compensation during the term of office which the mayor was elected, providing for a referendum vote thereon, providing an effective date.
Okay. If the ordinance is acceptable, we'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 1531, amending city charter section 3.04 and providing for a referendum vote.
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance 1531, proposing a city charter amendment. Second?
Do we have a second?
Tonight.
Second. Okay. Any discussion by members of council? Okay, this is my opportunity. Unfortunately, I was a little further away and I couldn't tell if people could hear me or not. So I withheld my comments at that point. I think we're doing this backwards. I understand, and I'm not, God knows what he's taken on since back when he was vice mayor and all the way through. He deserves whatever we can give him as far as that goes. I find it problematic to me personally that even we can vote ourselves a raise that takes effect right away. We all knew, we all knew what we were getting involved in. Doesn't mean we can't vote a raise for future councils, but I think it's wrong for us to vote a raise for us. I know it's getting a little bit off the topic, but I think we got it backwards. I think instead of making the mayor like us, we should be making ourselves more like the mayor. So philosophically, I'm opposed to doing it this way. I will vote for the affirmative because he's done a phenomenal job, and I know how it's going to go anyway. So it'll give the opportunity for the voters to make the decision. We're not making the final decision, but I was on the last charter review. I do not remember this coming up. It just, I don't know whether we didn't see it. I don't know whether it didn't exist. Did we ever figure that out, Mr. Schoen?
It did exist. Nothing has changed. I mean, this is the way it was when the last charter revision committee was contemplating the changes.
But there were two separate issues. Council could vote themselves a raise at any time.
It's in two separate sections, so you wouldn't have necessarily seen the council one and then seen the mayor one right underneath. They are in two separate sections of the charter.
But we did change the verbiage for council members in 18.
No.
No. Okay. So there was long before that was established that way. Okay. Again, I don't think we should be doing it that way, but I will vote to support it given the fact that we're trying to make it more equitable and so forth between the positions. Having said that, I'll call for a vote on the motion to adopt 1531. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance passes, and this is a second reading. So, when do we have to submit to
23rd.
23rd, okay. It'll appear as a referendum issue in November. Thank you, everybody.
We made,
Something about mayor for life or, you know.
yeah,
Have I been impeached?
No.
no,
Thank you, sir.
no. Your term has been extended.
I could go fishing, you know.
Meg may not be happy, but, you know.
Okay, so. Good evening, it's good to see you again. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance prohibiting smoking and vaping in public parks within the city. I will open the public hearing and ask Leisure Services Director Carl Langfeld to explain.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Back on July 1st, 2022, Governor Ron DeSantis signed into law House Bill 105, which permitted local governments to enact ordinances to limit or outright ban smoking on public beaches and in public parks. What I have brought for you tonight is consideration for an amendment of City Code Section 1839, which currently bans alcohol in city parks, to also include prohibiting smoking and vaping in public parks. One caveat to this ban, for some reason for which I have not been able to determine or find, the ban does provide an exception for unfiltered cigars. Don't know why.
I'll tell you why when we get to later on.
We need both.
Our city parks are, for me, a haven of healthy activity, healthy lifestyles for children to play outside of being exposed to the unhealthy side effects of smoking and vaping, or even just the exposure to the habit of smoking and vaping. I am thrilled to be able to bring this for you for consideration, for the benefit of everybody in our community to no longer have to be exposed to smoking and vaping in our city parks. I stand for any questions.
Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Sir?
If the city of Temple Terrace.
No, you have to approach the podium and give your name, please. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I've never been here before. I would simply say that the city of Temple Terrace, my name is Byron Longworth, resident Temple Terrace. If this city abolishes outdoor vaping, that would be the most embarrassing thing we have probably ever done. Therefore, I hope that this is not voted yes on. This is a very bizarre law that allows for smoking pot, but not having an unintrusive vaporizer in the public's hand. It's just absolutely the most ridiculous thing. Please vote no.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment? Mrs. Snelling, she beat you to it, Mr. Kravitz. You're next. Mrs. Snelling, welcome.
Ellen Snelling, Temple Terrace. Well, I think you all probably know what I'm going to say on this. I think this is great. It's only prohibiting smoking and vaping at public parks. I go to the public parks quite a bit. I would love to not smell any type of smoke or vape at Lettuce Lake Park, for one example. Now, the smoking on unfiltered cigars, I would like to see that, like, why is that an exception? One thing that I get concerned about is with marijuana smoking a blunt, which is a cigar. I assume it's unfiltered. I'm just not sure why there's an exception for that. I'd like to hear an explanation, but I would support this, and that hoping, like what Carl said, setting a really good example. Now the age is 21 for smoking and vaping across the country, including Florida. And for children, it would be better that they're not exposed when they're outdoor enjoying themselves to smoking and vaping, and not to mention the secondhand smoke. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kravitz.
I just have a quick question. Just my untechnical reading of this prohibits smoking. Would that not encompass smoking pot, or is this?
This is really not a question and answer at this point. And yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment on this item? If not, council member questions for Mr. Langfeld? Councilmember Chambers?
Thank you. Does this include the athletic fields?
Yes, it does. However, it does not, at this time, would not include the youth sports complex as it is located within Hillsborough County and not within the city limits of Temple Terrace. I have been in contact with the school board where our other athletic fields are located, and they are perfectly okay with enforcing the ordinance at the fields that are on their grounds.
Okay, does this also include the golf course since it's city property but run by a leasee?
The way the ordinance is written is any park owned by the city. So if it is considered a park owned by the city,
Question to somebody, is it considered?
I don't know, maybe mayor or city attorney?
Offhand, I wouldn't consider it a park. It's a golf course and club. So the statute that was passed by the Florida legislature involved parks and beaches. That was it.
Okay, so I hope we are sure on that, because I would hate to do something and find out that athletic fields is considered like the golf course or the other way around. But, and my last question is, any other entities around Florida enacted something this quick after this ordinance?
I have been in contact with directors from Parks and Rec agencies in the area. All of them are in the process of going through what we're going through right now. They are all establishing their verbiage to move in this direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember questions. Councilmember Abel, I'm coming back.
What is the enforcement plan for this?
My enforcement plan for this is similar to what we would do with the enforcement of like leash laws, where we have leash laws in the parks, where I'm not going to be sending out staff members to look for problems, right? If a problem is called in and say, hey, we have this issue at the Little League fields where people are smoking, and we can address it at that point. But I'm not going to have people walking around parks looking for people smoking, just like I don't send people walking out to parks looking for somebody who may have their dog running off a leash. It allows us the ability to enforce an ordinance with the backup that keeps smoking out of our parks.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Donahue?
Is this written to the letter of the state statute? Is this how it's written in the state statute?
The way that the code was amended, yes. That is unlawful for any person to smoke or vape at any time within the boundaries of a public park within the city, and it also addresses that the prohibition does not apply to the smoking of unfiltered cigars.
As I recall, yeah, it gave authority to the cities to enact what they passed. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Abel. That was partially my question, but what are the penalties? Just expulsion?
That would be what I would do is just stop as instructed, and if they refuse to expel them from the park.
No, wait a minute. That's not the only penalty for a city ordinance violation. There's more severe penalties than just stop to a law. What's the potential penalties to a city ordinance violation? You don't just tell somebody to stop, and if there's no other, if they say no.
Trespass?
Well, you can trespass them, so.
Same thing with drinking.
City attorney, there's no penalty to a city ordinance violation other than, please stop?
Well, no, there can be more than that. I'm assuming that this is where it would start and that we wouldn't rush right in and issue somebody a citation. Mm-hmm. So I think the request would be the initial part. If they refuse to do that, then they could be issued a citation. Then at that point, either a police officer would have to be called or our code enforcement officer would have to be called in order to issue a citation. It would be, as Carl mentioned at the beginning, this would be similar to if somebody were drinking. We have a ban on alcohol, it would be the same.
And what happens in those cases? Do they go to court?
They could either go to court or they could come in front of our code enforcement board. I would suggest taking them to court. This would go to county court.
That's what I didn't see in the ordinance, and I want to make sure I didn't miss it. You know, just, okay, stop. You guys become cops then.
Right, and we don't play the role of cops for whether it's a leash law or, you know, smoking and vaping in parks. I don't want my staff to become in that position. I don't want to put them in that position where we have, what this gives us the teeth to do is to request them to stop, and failure to comply would then escalate to calling for backup from our police department. You know, and
Yeah, right.
Police, no, sir, we're past the public comment, I'm sorry. Chief Albano, do you have any input on this?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I would appreciate the opportunity to have some time to talk with our attorney, because typically what is intended to be enforceable by ordinance by a council would be spoken to within the ordinance, and it would direct it to the enforcement area of our ordinances if you're anticipating wanting a police officer to make an arrest. Because while yes, they can, not every ordinance violation, as I think Pam was trying to say, is intended to be by this council to be acted upon by an officer to that level. So the way that it's worded and what it's pointed to as far as the enforcement intentions of this council needs to be clear. Otherwise, the officers are not going to know what it is that you want them to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking at this as being something that someone would be arrested for. This would be an issuing of a citation for an ordinance violation. So it's a civil penalty. It isn't criminal. They would not be arrested.
Which it should specify.
Thank you, Chief.
Wouldn't we need to spell that out in the ordinance? I don't know, I'm just, you know.
Well, right now, if there's a question, this is we're
That's
still
what
in
I'm
the,
saying,
here, there's discussion is coming. I don't know if this is a question.
No, it's a question.
Okay, so,
Is this something we need to spell out in there?
So we can make an addition to the ordinance before the second reading to add, to get more specific as to the enforcement or the penalties. We can put that in. I don't have I'm trying to get a copy of it so I can see what it said.
Because I have a feeling we could be standing room only for a second reading with public participation.
other questions? Are you?
Yeah, I'm good, no, I'm good, that's good.
Other questions for staff before we close the public hearing? I'll close the public hearing. Ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances, Section 18-39, to prohibit smoking and vaping in public parks within the city, except for the smoking of unfiltered cigars, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So before I call for a motion, I just want to add some thoughts to this, and I'm asking you, hear me out, okay? I'm not going to stand up here and advocate for everybody should have secondhand smoke, right? That's not what I'm about. First of all, I would have preferred, and I know this isn't in the city rules or anything, but I would have preferred we be engaged in some conversation about this before an ordinance is put before us for a yes or no public hearing. Because we could have had this and maybe crafted some of this or discussed some of it out. The issue of the cigar thing, I can answer that, which is not really germane here, but it's come up a couple times. The issue at the state legislature about this had the beginning of this that introduced this topic had to do with litter more than it had to do with secondhand smoke. And it was primarily the beach communities, but others that were saying that cigarette butts were the #1 litter problem they had on the beaches and in the parks. So that was really the thing that got this rolling in Tallahassee. It wasn't the secondhand smoke, it was the litter. And so that's why you see the unfiltered cigar exemption, is because, at least in theory, that's biodegradable. There's no, it's all natural. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that was how that got in there. So that's the unfiltered cigar part. Now, for my opinions, like you asked for this, I know, but for my take on this, first of all, I would say that I think everybody in the world is in agreement on hating secondhand smoke. I don't think there's anybody who's going to say, oh, I love the smell of somebody else's cigarettes, right? I don't think there's anybody that's going to do that. However, think about the devil's always in the details, and it's in the details of this too. I would much prefer an ordinance that is also in compliance with the new state law that says we can either ban or restrict and limit the smoking in public parks. Because there are clearly places in our public parks where smoking is inappropriate and where we should establish no smoking zones around playground equipment, maybe the picnic pavilions where people are trying to have their picnic and somebody's sitting on the picnic table over here smoking a cigar or a cigarette. I guess we can't regulate cigars, but cigarettes, marijuana, whatever they're doing, right? And it's clearly where people are congregating, and it's obtrusive to everybody else. But I can also see, and you can too, almost every day, if you go drive down to Rotary Park or River Hills Park sometimes, on Rotary Park, every day, there's somebody down there who takes their lawn chair and walks up to the grassy area along the river, and they take their lawn chair and their little cooler, and they sit there and fish all afternoon, and they smoke their cigars or whatever, their cigarettes if they want to smoke them. They're not around anybody. And they're sitting out there minding their own business, not bothering anybody. There's other people that go to Scout Park or River Hills Park, and they go down that boardwalk, and they're not around anybody. And they want to sit there and read a book or have their lunch and smoke a cigarette. Come on. I just don't think it's the city's burden. It's not our duty as a city to protect you from damaging your lungs as an adult. I just don't see a regulatory solution to a problem that I don't even know how big this problem is. Around the playground equipment, absolutely. No smoking signs, you can't smoke, this is where kids are playing, you got no business smoking around that. Around a picnic pavilion where people are out there with their families on a Saturday or something, all right, we don't need to be bothered by your smoking or even vaping or whatever. You're right, you're around a bunch of people, they're trying to enjoy their day. Go over there. But if somebody's at even the Little League park, they're there all day watching their kid play back-to-back baseball games, and they're all day Saturday, they're there. They can't go to their car in the parking lot to smoke a cigarette once an hour or something like that. I just don't see this as being necessary. Why don't we pass an ordinance that empowers the administration to establish no smoking zones where it's appropriate around places where people tend to congregate. I don't care. I mean, I care. I want everybody to be healthy and sing Kumbaya, right? But if you're sitting out on the river at Rotary Park 300 feet from the next person and you're smoking a cigarette, what business do we have to tell you to put your cigarette out? I think this is too big a hammer for the small nail that we're trying to drive in. So, that's it. Make a motion, whatever. Yes, Councilmember Donahue.
Can we continue this discussion before we have a motion? Because I think this is important.
I think we don't like to have discussion before a motion because
know.
it tends to go all over the place, but it
But-
seems like it's appropriate.
I think it's appropriate here because this is, as you said, this is a very heavy-handed approach to an overarching area of our city. This is almost like saying no smoking in Temple Terrace. Because I agree with you, and I do disagree on the sports fields, because I have been behind that guy smoking that cigarette while I was trying to watch my softball player, and, I had to move. Okay, so I would encourage us to go back to this ordinance, and if we have to do it tonight, do it tonight, but to hone it down, pick your zones. Playground areas where there are playground equipment, sporting, zones, create zones so that you can say and we'll just pick a park. okay? Let's pick one. Pick one, any one that you have. They all have an area where people could sit and smoke. So I don't know whether, do we create the smoking zone or do we create the no smoking zone? I don't know. I'm not a smoker, so I don't know. It is funny that the unfiltered, as you all know, I write letters to legislators. It's one of the things I like to do, and I get on these. And this thing has taken years and years to get through because the lobby for the cigar, and we live here in Hillsborough County, heavy cigar, great businesses, happy they're here, but they fought this thing tooth and nail. So this is an agreement to go along and take out, smoking and vaping and not worry about the cigars. I just think two things, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think we should hone it in and figure out some wording, even if it means that tonight we move to postpone this to the next meeting or date certain. But I also, when I read this in the paper, I was like, whoa, did I miss something? I didn't know this was coming. And that happens occasionally. We'll see. We are going to be talking about something that I didn't even know it was coming. I mean, as soon as I saw it in the paper, I knew to get ready for it, right? So anyway, that's my proposal, is rather than hash it out tonight, considering we have a lot more business to go before us, that we postpone this for another week until we can come up with a good solution for those areas that you're talking about, and that we all know that those are places we don't want people smoking.
Well, we will need to take an action in the form of a motion, but other people want to
Yes,
comment before
yeah,
that
yeah.
happens. So Councilmember Abel, you were next.
So you said this originally came about because of a littering issue, more specifically than secondhand smoke issue.
That's what I've been told in Tallahassee now. I didn't look
It
up
did,
the
it started
legislative
there.
notes and,
So when it comes to having smoking zones and non-smoking zones, do we need to make sure there's some way to address the littering aspect, or is that not relevant at this point?
that's a good question. I don't know. My idea, first of all, let me be clear. I'm all in favor, and in fact, I'll make the motion if it comes down to establishing no smoking areas within the parks. I am absolutely in favor of that. And I think, in my mind anyway, the ordinance should be pretty broad. We shouldn't get in, as a council, into the designation of, within so many feet of whatever. That, we just empower the administration to establish no smoking zones where they think it's appropriate. I would be fully behind that. And you raise a good point. Littering, throwing a cigarette butt down is already against the law. It's already littering. So making another law seems a little redundant because it's already illegal. I could see this having, but I do agree with Vice Mayor and with the police chief that the issue of enforcement and penalties needs to be in here. But I could fully support and would be proud to support something where Mr. Langfeld could put up no smoking zones around certain areas that are appropriate under penalty of, $100 fine or whatever. It's a civil fine, obviously. But I would be happy to support something like that. I just think, well, I've already said it. I just think it's a big hammer for a small nail.
Well, to that end, I mean, we just came from the League of Cities conference, and one of the big things there is home rule, and this is our chance to apply home rule, and we might as well do it in the right way for our community and not just with broad brush strokes. So I like that we can be really specific about exactly what we want to do with something like this. So I agree.
And I've been on this side, so who wants to go first?
I will. I'm in agreement that it needs a little bit more work. We already have, used to, I don't know if we still do, that you can't smoke at ball fields inside the fences, dugouts, or bleachers. I don't know if that's still enacting. So there's some of that already. But back to your issue on trash, I mean, the boardwalk, you made that comment, but people throw their butts on the boardwalk, so there's some areas, and I know I would think there's an issue already of trash in the parks and cigarette butts, because we've always had that. So I'd like to see this a little bit more. I'm concerned that we don't do anything bad to the golf course without them knowing it. You know, so we need to look at that a little bit more than just tonight, so.
I agree. I read it the same way the city attorney did. I had the same question, and my conclusion was the golf course isn't covered by this, is what I thought. So, because, yeah,
I hope not.
that would be a problem.
But it is listed as a park in our comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it is.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you. That was the reason I brought up the question about penalties and enforcement and so forth. And now we have we'll be deputizing, you know, Phil and everybody else to take care of this, which is what we don't want to do. But by the same token, we don't need to create more work for the chief and his guys. You know, we want everything else done. But the point is that there are people that will go smoke, that can stand on the corner, create a no smoking zone, create a smoking zone or a non-smoking zone, so that they can segregate off, so that we don't have the issues like in the stands of the Little League field or around the playground equipment, et cetera, et cetera. In comment regarding the ordinance just hitting us kind of sort of out of the blue, we did charge our city attorney to, when something comes up, get it to us. And we have the opportunity to either do it, send it back, and, you know, we've sent stuff back before. So I think the legal department is doing what we asked to do. Tell us tell us, in their opinion, what we need to be doing. We can yay it, nay it, send it back for refining, and bring it forward. I would like to see it come back to us at a later date, and I'm not sure how we do this. I sure don't want to approve this and then come back for a second hearing, because we won't have enough time to really react to it. I would like to see if there's a way we could just table this to a time certain, bring it back to us with some of these refinements, with a smoking zone or non-smoking zone, and you know, make sure that we specifically make sure that we don't include the golf course and the boat ramps and stuff like that. So maybe there's a way we can refine it and bring it back to us. We don't have a gun to our head, so to speak, by trying to comply to the state statute, unless there's some time frame that we need to do some. I do agree, home rule. We like to preserve home rule so we can act on it whenever we have the opportunity. But I'm apprehensive to support it in this format without some better delineation as to what we can do and what people can and can't do. It's not illegal to smoke, so it's difficult for us to, I think, to you know, beat down on everything and try to make it so you just can't do it, period. And that's my point.
City Attorney, what is the best action for us to take if we chose to send this back for the discussion, the revisions that we've discussed?
Well, I'm thinking about the clerk first, and thinking about, you know, the advertising that needs to be done. So this was advertised for this to be the first reading, but clearly we've got some crafting to do here. I think if you made a motion to postpone it or to continue it to a date certain, that would be helpful. As far as advertisement, and also letting us know when we need to have this ready for you. So continuing it to a date certain.
Well, I think the question is reversed. When are you able to bring this back to us?
I'd bring it to you tomorrow if you wanted it.
No, I don't want it tomorrow.
You just tell me when you need it and I'll have it done.
Well, the problem with date certain stuff is it's hard for us to predict what the agenda is going to look like on a certain night. We can do it. We can pick a future date. You want us to
just, you know, whatever, just pick a meeting, you know, coming, you know, a meeting in September, a meeting in October, just your choice.
So, colleagues, if the council is so inclined to make a motion to that effect, I think now would be the appropriate time. But I'm not trying to tell you what to do. If that's what you want to do.
I move to table the ordinance, proceeding with the ordinance to a time certain of, say, September 20th. And giving the legal department and rec department ample time to make some of the refining comments that we discussed and moving forward with it at that point in time.
May I ask that you move it to the first meeting in October? The meeting in September 20th, I will be out of town. I won't
Okay.
move it to the first meeting in October.
Is that-
I'll be back in town.
Only question is that National Night Out?
Yes.
Okay.
Not a good night.
Yeah.
How about the second?
Second meeting in
Second
October.
meeting, okay, that's fine. Okay, but so that's my motion. Move it to the second meeting in October, excuse me, which would be what, the 18th?
October 18th.
Huh?
18th.
October 18th.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there discussion on the motions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Item is postponed to October 18th. So it will appear again for a first reading on October 18th. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance establishing the annual salary of the mayor and members of city council. I will open the public hearing. Interim city manager Steve Spina will explain. Dr. Spina.
Good evening. Thank you. This is a request to amend the salaries of the mayor and city council. Mayor and council salary was last set at $239 a month several years ago, with council receiving $50 a month mileage and the mayor receiving $100 a month. A survey was done by the clerk, and she surveyed about 90 municipalities throughout the state of Florida. Median pay from that result from that survey was for the mayor $10,377 and $9,975 for city council members. The ordinance changing council pay, this ordinance, will not impact the mayor's pay until after the referendum vote. So if you approve this and the referendum passes, you'll have to revisit this in November to change the mayor. And staff recommends you move forward with this. We think it's timely.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Spina. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? None. Council member questions for Dr. Spina?
Yeah, why don't you say that last part again? After
The ordinance doesn't change the language in the mayor's salary for the term being served won't be changed until after the referendum.
Okay.
So if the referendum passes in November, you'll have to revisit this to change the mayor's salary.
Okay.
And if
For the
if it doesn't pass, then it would take effect upon the mayor's reelection or a new mayor being sworn in.
Okay.
Good. Other questions, council members? If not, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, repealing Ordinance 1102, adopted November 4th, 2003, adopting a new ordinance establishing the annual salary of the mayor and members of City Council, providing for an automatic salary increase effective October 1st of each year to reflect the Consumer Price Index, CPI rates, establishing expense accounts for the members of City Council and mayor, providing for manner of payment of salaries and expense accounts, providing for severability, providing for repeal of all conflict ordinances, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the ordinance establishing the annual salary of the mayor and council members upon first reading.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
I just want to go on, I'm sorry. Go on record as I cannot support this motion. As reasons I've stated before, I do not think it's right for us to vote our own in at this point in time.
I don't think I heard your discussion before. It must have been in the.
Oh, you were outside. I'm sorry. You were.
Do you mind repeating it?
No, I believe that a sitting council member should not be permitted to vote themselves a raise in their term. It should go into effect in a subsequent term, whether they're reelected or not. I do not. We knew what we were getting into when we decided to run for the office, and we live with it or not. So I cannot support a raise for council members at this point.
Other members? wish to comment on the motion? I just real quickly, because I haven't commented, this is the first reading of this one, and I've been out of the room both times you talked about the other one. Just more for the public's benefit, because we talked in the budget workshop, but just for the public watching, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't give me a raise, that's fine. The vice mayor is correct. We all knew what we were signing up for. But that's not really the discussions that has taken place in the budget meeting that brought this issue to a vote tonight. This discussion has never been about any of the five of us getting a pay increase. We never talked about that per se. What our discussion has been is that our city is more and more finding it in a difficult position to find good people who are willing to run for city council, because we pay less than villages of 800 people in the state of Florida. We're, this $2,000 a year to do this job is crazy. And little villages that have 800 people are paying their council members $500 or $6,000. It's just, this job over the decades has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. We all are members of boards and committees, and we're downtown in Tampa all the time at the county center. James Chambers is in Clearwater every month for a regional meeting. This is not just a twice a month that you see us on television. This is all I do. Right? This is my full-time gig now. Now that's self-imposed. But I mean, everybody up here is doing an awful lot of service for the public for $200 a month. I mean, it's a little crazy. And so we did an analysis, and we found out that, and what we're proposing here is still putting us in the lower threshold. We're still not, I mean, we should really probably be going higher than this. So this is not about us getting a raise. It never has been. It's about making these positions in line so that people from all economic backgrounds can come and serve you as an elected official, and not just the people who have a retirement income or they have their own business or right? Because now, I mean, you got a good council, I think, but now many, many people are not economically able to run for city council because of the time they have to spend away from their job and families and stuff, and they're making $200. So this is not about us getting a raise. This is about you getting a good council. And I hope that's convincing and people don't, oh, he's lying. Right? So incidentally, Tampa, apples and oranges, I know that. Tampa City Council members make $52,000 a year right now. The proposed budget they are about to approve raises them $20,000 a year. They will be making $72,000 a year in the new budget that they're passing. Now, I know, bigger city, but I bet they don't work that much harder than these folks up here, all right? So, little perspective. I didn't mean to give you a speech. It's a discussion on the motion. But any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
One nay. Vice Mayor Schister. This ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, September the 6th. The next item is a first reading of Ordinance 1534, amending Chapter 2 of the Code, Administration and Elections. City Manager Dr. Spina will explain.
This is another ordinance that you may have not seen before.
No, but we knew what this one was about.
Okay. This is really housekeeping. It's recommended City Council approve an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code, Administration and Elections on its first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading September 6th. Several years ago, the administration reorganized Public Works into two separate departments, Public Works Operations and Public Works Utilities. This ordinance will just basically keep the same organizational but rename them. It'll be Public Works and Utilities. We're also asking, as part of this, that the redevelopment department, which is not operated as a single department since 2017, be folded into the community development department. So that is our request.
Good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Council member questions?
Yeah, I'm confused. So in looking at the memorandum that we had in our first packet, it identified a business relation manager / interim community development director. It's in the little blue bun.
Oh, that's not
this.
That's not part of this.
So,
These are existing positions already. Those aren't new positions.
okay, so who is our current community development department director?
Mike Sherman.
Okay, and he would remain
Yes,
in
he
that
remains that.
position?
There's
Okay.
a empty position of a redevelopment director that was kind of tied to the CRA.
Right,
And
right.
that's not been filled since 2017.
Mr. Hudson?
Correct.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so,
Would just fold that redevelopment into community development.
okay, so we just basically are removing a position that
That
we
was
haven't
vacant,
filled in
right,
years.
right.
Okay, all right,
And then utilities will be public works
Mhm.
and utilities.
okay, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So we are, Sherry, we're just codifying something that was done, that
Okay.
was not brought before us for the ordinance change. It was just done.
Yes,
When Public Works was split into two, and then we all of a sudden had two directors,
Yes.
that's, so all we're doing is catching the ordinance up to what already exists.
I understand that piece. I was confused as to the title that someone already has as interim community development director, and now we're saying that we have a community development director. What's,
You're reading from two different.
I
you're
am,
reading the
but-
Budget book is one thing and the ordinance is
I
another.
am, but this is a title that someone,
Yeah.
so I just,
I'm not familiar with that. I didn't even know we had a redevelopment director until this was put forward, so we're just trying to do housekeeping and clean it up for the positions that are actually there, and then clarify the titles in Public Works for Ray will be Public
Understood.
Works and Troy will be Utilities, which they currently are, but it's confusing to people that think we have two Public Works directors.
oh, that part I thoroughly understand, absolutely. I understand, okay,
Okay?
all right.
You sure?
Well, no, I'm telling you, I'm reading this.
May I see that?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
So that's,
All we're doing
Yeah.
is, you got the Public Works part.
I got the
figured out. You're
Public
stuck
Works
in the
part.
other
I
one.
got that down.
The other one is, all we're doing is
Oh,
taking
okay. This
Marty,
had to do with, I'm sorry.
Marty Hudson's old
Yes,
position.
yes.
That was a director level position.
Yes,
That doesn't exist anymore.
Right,
So
right.
we're just eliminating that director level
Okay.
position, folding that FTE into Mike's shop, community development.
That interim was, the business manager, director, was acting as community redevelopment with his duties over the CRA.
okay, okay, all right,
You clear? Got it?
Mhm.
Okay.
thank you.
Other questions, council members? I lost where we are here. Okay. No other questions. I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, dividing the Public Works Department into Public Works Department and the Utilities Department, merging the Community Development Department and the Redevelopment Department, amending Chapter 2, Administration and Elections, Article 1, General, Section 2-3, Administrative Departments, established, appointment of department heads, bond additional duties to provide for updating of administrative departments, providing for severability, providing for authority to codify, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
I move to approve reading, ordinance 1534, amending Chapter 2 of the Code, Administration and Elections.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. This ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, September the 6th. Next is council business, discussion of Innovation Alliance payments or Soaring City payments. Dr. Spina.
This is just an agenda item that during the budget workshops, we've been talking about the city's contributions to Innovation Alliance. And we talked about what to provide funding for this current fiscal year and to budget 10,000 for next fiscal year.
I believe the specific action item for tonight is whether to spend money that's already budgeted, right? That's the particular action.
Yes.
We don't need a motion to budget for next year.
Okay.
So I think in our discussion, just for the public's benefit, we had a budget meeting this afternoon. Then the fiscal year we're in now, the current money that we're in, last year when we developed this budget, we budgeted $10,000 to sponsor Soaring City or Innovation Alliance events. We had a little hiccup in that we had requested some tax returns from previous years just to kind of keep an eye on their finances, and they were kind of slow in producing that. And until they produced it, we put a freeze on sponsoring some of their events. So we didn't spend any of the $10,000. We have since received their tax documents that were requested, and everything is okay. So we're now moving ahead with deciding how much of that 10,000, if any, we want to approve for expenditure. That's what's going on. So we talked in the budget meeting, there is an annual innovation gathering coming up. There's different sponsorship levels, everything from $20,000 all the way down to something a lot less. And we had kind of a general informal agreement that we thought 5,000 sounded like a good figure. And so what we're being asked to do now is to formalize that into a motion and direct the staff to do that, if that's what the council wants to do.
I'll make a motion to approve the participation in the next Innovation Alliance soiree to the tune of $5,000. That level of sponsorship.
I second that.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays? Dr. Spina, we're good to go for 5,000 for the gathering.
Yes, sir.
Any other business under council business?
I do. This is old
Well,
business.
let me make sure that he's done, and then you're next, I promise. Dr.
Yes, sir, I'm done.
You're done, okay. Councilmember Donahue.
Okay, we had a discussion, I guess it was at the last meeting, about the city's logo. And I want to just clarify, I want to make sure, I'm glad you're here. I know that we are talking about the tower logo being used on promotional items where it's problematic to put it someplace else. But, you know, I'm one of those people who doesn't throw fun stuff away. So I found this beautiful booklet that was put together by our marketing agency that we had back in 2015, of which we paid considerable amount of money. And I think we may not be using our current logo to the best of its ability. They have some beautiful ads in here, and these were all just suggestions, okay? But they all brought that word amazing in. And I think anybody in the room who was here when we first did that, we all started using the word amazing right away, right? We were like, okay, we're buying into this thing. But, you know, there was some nice little ads that were, you know, how a little piece of history became amazing. And then there was a story. 10-minute, you're going to love this one. 10-minute commute to Tampa, amazing. Okay, you know, with a buddy, baseball is amazing. So we also, after last week's meeting, we had citizens sending us all kinds of pictures of our current logo saying, hey, I'm seeing this thing all over the place. So it is out and it is visible, and we are obviously able to use it to some places. But I think what I want to make sure that we do here is that when we, and by the way, the banners downtown, that's a perfect example. This wouldn't go. It wouldn't fit there because it would be too thin or what have you. So the promotional logo should be the tower one. And I think you weren't here, Gil, but hopefully you heard all the discussion. That's fine, but anytime it is a city sanctioned or city, maybe not, or it's sanctioned, but official business, it should have this approved logo. And the thing that got me started thinking about that was that the first thing we got about the candidates had the tower logo on it. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not a promotional item, that's on a piece of white paper. You can obviously put you can put this logo definitely on that. So I'm not trying to upset the apple cart here. I just want to make sure that when we say promotional items, that we agreed that, that logo that you came up with, and it fits in those places. But that anything that's official business of the city needs to stick with it. And I went looking at the city of Tampa. And they make our logo look plain. I mean, there's loop-de-loop-de-loops all around, and it's on everything. They don't skip a beat. It's never not used. So I just hope that, that we can get down to making sure that the official, like if you send an email and you work for the city, it needs to have that on it. And if you do a promotional item and it can't have that on it, then the other one that we've seen that was produced and given to us last week would be fine. This is important to me. I really liked this campaign, and I think it was a nice launch. And I think we could go back to utilizing this even more than we have already. So we have two nice logos. One of them is fun about the tower, and the other one is our store. By the way, it was pointed out to me that the T's are the original T's that were in the gate. This is supposed to be a gate. So for those of you who don't know what this thing is, that's what it's supposed to be. As a matter of fact, I think there were some people in the audience last week who were trying to raise their hands and speak, but, we didn't give them a chance. So anyway, that was spoken my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Other council business, carryover council business? I have one item, and I'll try to be brief. This is primarily, I need to talk to Councilmember Abel, but this is for obviously I can't tell somebody what to do, but last meeting I asked, we had an applicant for a vacancy for the bicycle pedestrian Hillsborough County appointee.
Yes.
And I asked to table that until I had an opportunity to talk to the clerk about a couple things and to get back with you. So I want to get back with you. Two items I had. One is I wanted to talk to the clerk about our application for citizen boards to try to maybe make a little more robust application so we knew a little more about folks that apply for the boards.
Yeah.
We're working on that, and we'll probably put something before you guys, probably not a council, but the clerk will probably send it to you and get some input. I don't know that we need to make a motion on that, but that's one item that I had. The other one is, it was my hope when we established our board that we would have that person that's our county appointee to the TPO would be embedded in our local council, either as a member of both, or that appointee to the county position would be agreeable to attend our local meetings, or that there be some connection. So the reason I asked to table it was, one, we didn't gather, and this is no fault of the applicant, she filled out the form we provided, we didn't have any real information to understand the nexus there for bicycle pedestrian things. And number two is I was trying to slow it down a little bit to try to figure out how to make sure we have that connection between what we're doing here and what the county TPO is doing. And so we have the application thing, we're working on that, and we'll get that to you. But here's what I would ask, if you're willing to do this. If you're not, we'll figure it out and come back. you have graciously agreed to take on this new board and being the liaison to the council with this board and stuff. Would this be something that you would like to maybe discuss with the board members and see if any of them would also like to serve on the county? Or maybe talk to the one applicant we got and maybe see if that person is willing to also attend, you know, commit to attending our meetings, or somehow establishing that there's a link so that these aren't two separate. And, I mean, I can figure it out and present it to the council, but this is really, I'm not trying to dump it on you, but I hate to ask you to take this board and then I'm doing stuff for a board that I've asked, you know, this is kind of your thing.
Sure, I'd be happy to have that conversation.
Okay, and then that would mean that you'd have to, like, come back to us when you get this resolved and, you know, kind of tell us what you want us to do.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Is that good? Is that all right with everybody?
Did you know that person?
Not personally, no.
I mean, he wasn't on the one who applied was not on our board.
No, it's not
Yeah.
someone who's already on the board.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I told you I was gonna talk to Councilmember Abel, but this is the only way I can do it. I can't, you know, it's kind of cumbersome, but it's the only way I can do it. Good? All right. New business, board reports. Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to bring up that I've been in contact with the new president for the country club, Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club, and they're having a couple of critical meetings in the next couple of weeks regarding budget and a general meeting, and I've asked them to come make a presentation to council. They haven't been here in quite a while, so they're planning on being here, depending upon a daughter's birth, the birth of a granddaughter. It'll either be the 6th or the 20th, but we'll, probably the 20th of September, to give everybody enough time to accommodate birth plans. So, but they will be here to make a presentation to council. Sure.
Did they hire a new GM, or
They're working on it. They
They still have the interim?
Yes, still have the interim. They're in the process of working on it. So,
Other new business?
that's all I have.
New business. One thing real quick, I know I've gone on too much, but this is important. It did come to my attention, ladies and gentlemen, that one of our colleagues up here, Sherry Donahue, has recently been bestowed a very high honor. She's been selected as Sertoma's Humanitarian of the Year. And so, and I'm not telling you where I got this information because you'll be very upset with somebody, but it's not, right? So anyway, that's a very high honor. That's not something that they just throw around lightly. And so those of us who've lived in the city a long time, we know that Councilmember Donahue wears many hats in the community. She's Rotarian. She's on and on and on and on and on. So we're very proud of you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that is all I have under new business. City Manager.
I just have just an update on the events surrounding the search for a new city manager. And the public events are tomorrow night, a meet and greet at 5:30 to 7 at the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club. And then Thursday afternoon, there will be public city council special meeting and public interviews with the candidates here in the council chamber starting at 1:30. And those are open to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spina. City Attorney.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing. Directors. Council.
They're like,
Citizens. Anything to come before the council? If not, we'll be adjourned.